Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today I have another amazing guest for you, so I'm super excited. So my guest today is an innovative business leader, a best-selling author, global speaker, and self-confessed compulsive creator. Her approach to business for the past 30 years cannot be found inside a textbook. Rather, she follows energy, listening for what she calls the whispers of awareness and consciousness, and is always in the question, what next? She also founded Joy Business, a program that mentors entrepreneurs global to greater wealth, success, and happiness. She's also one of the main advanced facilitators and business development coordinators for Access Consciousness. So, a very, 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 very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Simone Milasas. How are you, Simone?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me here, Paul.
When I do the podcast, I'm always excited to have guests on the podcast. But when I start delving into their content, it just really excites me. And so when I started getting into your content, who you are, what you're doing, all the people that you're impacting, and your journey, it kind of it was just really increases my enthusiasm for the conversation. What I was keen to do, just for everybody listening, watching, this episode is around using your awareness for business success. And you've got lots of amazing tools that people potentially aren't familiar with that you're using yourself, and you've got this big community and you're really supporting people globally with lots of different techniques that everybody can use from a personal and a business perspective. But what I was keen to capture initially is a little bit about you, your journey, how you've arrived at this point now, what types, who you are, what types, I guess, what your journey's been like to get to arrive at this point.
Well, Paul, I would say from a really young age, I'm going to say about that 16 years of age, when everyone was trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their life and what are you going to study and where you're going to go, and people were talking about getting married when they left school and all these different things, I was like, and I think that moment I really knew that I was a little different and that I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to start my own business and I wanted to change the world. And for me, I'd look out and I'd see the way people were with so many different things, the way they would react, the trauma and drama that people would choose. And I was like, I was honestly like, this can't be it. There has to be something else. And for me, when I looked out and looked at the planet, and I've always grown up near the beach. So you've got this big wild ocean, the animals, the nature, everything like that. And I'm like, and then there's people on this planet who are making this relevant. Why? I think that's what I was always looking at. But I didn't actually have the sense that I had many people to talk to about any ideas that I had, or, hey, why can't we live a different way? Or, what if we looked at this different, have a different perspective? So I think what I started doing was I was like, I'm going to travel. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to, and not just go and visit tourist spots. That included, I wanted to go to countries and delve into the people who lived there and the cultures and see how, what they were choosing and why they were choosing it. And I was just so enthused to discover the world. So I left when I was 19, told everyone I was going for 6 months. I had so little money, Paul, so little money. And I went to America and pretty much spent all my money, but I had this ticket, and the next stop was London. I arrived in London and I remember I had 50 pounds to my name. And I was with a friend and I was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? So we got this backpackers, this was years ago too. And it was, I can't remember how much the backpackers was, but it was like, okay, we need to sleep because we were super tired. And I remember in the morning, like, you got the boiled eggs and the bread, etc. And we were like, quick, shove some of those boiled eggs in our pocket and the bread for later. Because we were like, I don't know how I'm going to eat later. So let's just do that, And then I remember going to it was like a temp agency. And I went to talk to them and said, hey, what work do you have, etc. And they're like, oh, we don't have anything at the moment. And then I spoke to her and she said, hang on a second, where are you from? And I said, Australia. And she said, sit down, I'll be with you in a second. And later I went, why did you say that? And she went, oh, we get so many Australians here and New Zealanders who are so poor that they're willing to do anything. And I went, that's me. So she gave me this job, like stuffing invoices into envelopes for 3 days. And, that was my first job in London. And I did that. And then, I made my way, and I ended up getting more work and did everything. And I ended up staying overseas for 3 years instead of 6 months. And
3 years.
3 years.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
I stayed in London for quite some time, and then I would travel to Europe and just worked on these, different jobs, etc. But I think when I was in London, I got to discover more of myself as well, because I didn't have everyone around me that I grew up with. So people, I tend to think, Paul, a lot of times people will project at you like, oh, Paul wouldn't do that, or Paul always does that. And then all of a sudden, if you're surrounded by people who don't know you, people don't project, oh, Paul's going to do this. They just go, hey, would you like to do this? And you start discovering, I think, more of what you are and who you are and how you look at the world. So, I did that. And I also wrote, because I was so poor, I used to get on, I had my travel pass, and I lived in one of those, share houses that had 21 people with 3 bedrooms in northern London. And to get away from everyone, I would just go on the bus and I would travel across one side of London to the other, and I would write. And I used to write down, I guess, things that inspired me of how I would like to see the world. And I remember I wrote this big piece on vulnerability, because I was looking around and I was like, why can't people just be kind to each other? Like, why can't there be this energy? Like when 2 kids see each other, and kids don't care how much money you have in the bank account, what your name is, what your religion is, or anything. They're just like, hi, you want to play? That energy. And I was like, what if we could all engage like that across the world? So that was very much a basis for me creating the next moves, because then when I came home, I started a business called Good Vibes for You. And it was about lots of merchandise and things like that, about inviting people and inspiring people to look at any area of their life and know that they could change it. And I ended up working in the music industry and doing merchandise and all of this. And then, fast forward a little bit, I came across Access Consciousness, which is who I work with now and I have for the last 23 years. And I saw Gary Douglas, who's the founder of Access Consciousness, talk. And I was so enthralled. I was like, oh my God, this guy is, like, first of all, he was irreverent. He swore. He said, don't trust me, trust you. And I went, nobody's ever said that to me before. Don't trust me, trust you. And it was so refreshing. And because I think we need to look at ourselves, like what works for you, Paul, what works for me, not use other people as a reference point in order to create our lives. And so it was so refreshing. And I was like, I want to find out more about this guy. So I went and saw him speak again. And then here I am 23 years later, and I facilitate Access Consciousness classes all around the world. I've written a few books using the Access Consciousness tools. And I'm, in one way, I'm like, the story's only just begun. I go through so many changes all the time. I was saying to someone today, at the moment, I feel like I'm a caterpillar and I have all this transformation going on in my world. And pretty much due to, actually, when I was in London last year in June, I hurt my back. And then in October in Australia, I was taken to hospital by an ambulance because I couldn't walk. And, it's one of those moments where the universe just goes, hey. And my body was like, you have to stop. You have to stop going so fast. And because I was. So I've been looking at that since, the end of October last year, and changing how I'm looking at my life, my business, everything. And it's been quite an adventure, and one that I am enjoying. And there's moments that you're like, okay, I need some more, courage with this, and to keep moving forward with what I know I can choose and create here on the planet. So here I am. That's my story.
So quite a journey. Well, there's lots of questions that spring to mind, but I guess I'll start sort of at the beginning with the courage or that intuition to follow your instinct to maybe travel to Europe and do something different because you've had all these unanswered questions. Because I definitely feel that not for everybody, but certainly for the majority, in my opinion, we
Yeah.
go with maybe this set out structured life where we go to school, we go to college, go to university, something along those lines. And if we've got these inner feelings of not quite sure it just like an ill-fitting suit or an ill-fitting dress, that
Hmm.
even when we have those feelings, we get maybe our parents or our friends that say, even if we dare to maybe voice them maybe to one or two people, we kind of get made to feel a little bit, a little bit awkward or a little bit maybe you're out of sync here. Let's stick to the straight and narrow, and you kind of fall in line. So that showed me kind of right at the beginning, you have this willingness to question things, to challenge things, to pick things apart, not accepting things as they are, because invariably in life, things are packaged for us, presented to us. And more often than not, and in my case, I kind of have spent a lifetime going along with things, even when maybe hmm, maybe it might suit my friends or maybe the
Yeah.
masses, but does it really, I don't know, feel comfortable or fit with
Yeah.
what my energy is feeling?
Yeah. And I think so many of us start to comply. And, the interesting thing, Paul, I get like when you do comply and you are choosing something because your family or your friends are going, Paul, this would be good for you, and then you choose it, then it makes them comfortable. Like they
Yeah.
feel comfortable because they know where Paul is, they know where Simone is. But when you go, no, I don't think so. I'm going to do something completely different. And it's not choosing against anyone, it's just choosing for you.
Mm.
You make people so uncomfortable when you don't conform. And yet the interesting thing is so many people spend their entire lives trying to fit. You don't fit. We literally don't fit. It's like, and we try and fit into this society that has all these rules and regulations, and we're like, well, maybe that's not the way I would like to live. And it's not, like I said, choosing for you shouldn't be choosing against. It's just choosing for you. And I think when you choose for you, you show others that they can also choose for them.
Yeah. So so I've got a lot of questions. So in terms of choosing for you,
Yeah.
what does that, because I'm just thinking for me, I guess, from a selfish perspective, and maybe for people watching and listening, but maybe in a place in their lives, it can be of any age, be it college, it can be full-time work, and you have these thoughts or energies, but you just maybe we don't have the pattern or the history of being able to actually engage them and actually make a decision which hasn't been a consistent one that we historically made. How do we maybe start the process of maybe thinking about how I can make a different decision or one that feels more in line with my energy?
Even start looking at the smallest of things. I mean, how many times did you go out with your friends and you went to the bar or something and you had no desire to? You wanted
No.
to go and you just went out.
Mm,
And it's like, well, I'm going to say, what if, and then you go, oh, I'd like to go home. And everyone goes, no, no, stay, stay. What if you start choosing for you and go, you know what? I'm actually gonna, I'm gonna go home. Or, even recently, it was about a year ago. It's funny, I don't go to London that much, but I keep mentioning stories from London. It must be you. And I was in London and I was at this event. It was a opening of a film, right? And I was there with friends. And then my friends went home. Now, what do you usually do when your friends go home? You go home too. And I went, you know what? I'm going to stay. I was just having this really nice
mm,
time, and it was like, I'm going to
yeah,
stay. But how often do you sort of like you all go along with the crowd? And it's like, no, stay or go, but choose for you.
yeah,
So, and also choose for your body. I really want to mention that too. It's like you've got to, ask your body. It's like what works for your body as well. Because, for the past, I don't know, before 2020, I was traveling about 10 months of the year. And I was just doing it. I was just traveling, right? And then all of a sudden, 2020, I was home going, okay, now what, And we all thought, that would be over soon. And, I lived in one of the biggest jails in the world, Australia. So we couldn't get in or out of our state, So you had to explore something different, right? And so now I've looked at my life and gone, okay, so how much do I want to travel? And if I started functioning from people's needs around the world, then I would be traveling constantly. But I'm not. I'm going, okay, I can be here at these times, like asking when and where, but I also need to be with me. I need to choose what's working for me here. There's so many areas. Like I was talking to someone the other day about how I remember when I was much younger, I would choose, I'd have a boyfriend and I would literally, in my head, I could hear myself going, I wonder if my friends will like him. And if my friends didn't like him, he was gone. That's nothing about me. It was just about will my friends like him? That's insane, But it's like, how many times do we do that? How many times in business do we choose something based on, oh, this will be accepted? That's not going to create a new world. That's not going to create something different. I mean, look at Da Vinci. It's like Da Vinci was friggin' amazing, and he wasn't looking for acknowledgement from anyone else. He was just creating and inventing. It's like, so what are you aware of? Like, we talked about that as the awareness of what you're aware of in business. It's like, what are you aware of? What would you like to choose? What if you started choosing it? Don't look for somebody else to give you, the sign off on it that it's okay and it's going to be acceptable. If it's going to be fun for you, choose it. If it makes you happy, choose it. Like that, really, that simple.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question that you raise and you pose lots of thoughts because you almost get to the point to who are we in terms of, because if we'll get into active consciousness in a minute. I'd love to know more about that, but it's if we've got if, we're surrounded by people, family and friends, television, Instagram, social media a lot more these days. So we definitely tap into lots of different other people's opinions. And we do, I think, in many respects, look for confirmation from others before we move forward. The boyfriend analogy is a great one. But then it just makes me think about deep down inside, who are we if we're not used to or comfortable consistently thinking about what works for us, looking into our own intuition. And that's kind of, I guess some people can live a lifetime where they don't really have the awareness to ask those questions.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to live your whole entire life by the projections and expectations of others, or would you like to live your life the way you'd like to choose it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so simple. Like, I mean, I used to go to the movies on my own. I haven't been to the movies in ages, by the way. Now with, streaming and stuff like that, you don't tend to do that. But I used to go to the movies on my own a lot, and I loved it. And I remember people, would say to me, "Oh, you go to the movies on your own. Don't you have anyone to go with?" And I'm like, yeah, I love going to the movies on my own. Or I'll quite often go hiking on my own. It's like, and then I might go hiking with a friend, but Paula, it's never too late to start choosing what actually works for you. Because if you're not choosing what works for you, how are you going to live this like fulfilled life? Are you like, what are you going to regret, later on? And if you want to travel, like stop talking about what you want to do and start choosing it, is what I would say. And in business, stop talking about what it is you'd like to do and start choosing it. Start putting it into action. Because I think people try and play it safe. You are going to stumble and fall. If you're in business, you are going to stumble and fall. Like it shows up, that happens. And it's like, sometimes you have the biggest stumbles, grazed knees and everything. And it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to lie on the ground and cry? Or are you going to get back up and go, wow, that was interesting. I gained a lot of awareness from that. And I think that's really paramount, is to gain awareness from every choice you make. Like one of the tools I would use is I would ask, what's right about this I'm not getting? If something doesn't go the way you thought it should go, what's right about this I'm not getting? And also, what awareness did I gain from this?
Yeah.
Because you'll always gain awareness, always.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful tool, that having that ability to I guess, review and I guess glean every type of feedback we can from every situation, particularly if something hasn't gone well, because invariably there will be some real valuable information there that I think for the majority of us, I know myself historically, when things haven't gone according to plan, is probably why this podcast exists. I've never really I never used to really examine things. I would just accept the situation and just move on, which meant that I hadn't really learned anything, and there would be repetition in terms of those mistakes.
Yeah.
Which clearly does not help.
And Einstein says that doing the same thing and expecting a different result is the sign of insanity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's
absolutely.
like, it's like it's like you may as well be hitting your head against a brick wall, it's like change it. Like if you're not happy with any area of your life, pivot, change the story. You are the one that gets to rewrite it. You are the one that gets to change your story.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's really interesting that you said that, changing stories, because sometimes we feel that our stories are fixed, so we can't change the story. The past is the past. It will be our present and our future.
Yeah. But so for instance, like, so let's use money as an example. And it's like, if someone is always crying, poor, poor, pitiful me sort of thing, and I have no money and I'm never going to have money and blah, blah, blah. So maybe you've had no money, but you can change that now. You can choose something different. So you can change the trajectory. If you're in a bad relationship and it's like, change the story. Okay, you chose that. And, I'm sure we've all chosen, different relationships that we're like, oh, okay, that was a bit interesting, and then we move on. We choose something different. Hopefully you choose something greater every time, but you gain from your choices. It's not about judging what you chose. It's about the ability that you have as an amazing infinite being here in the world to choose again. Choose again, choose again, choose again.
In relation to that, in having that awareness, and this might be you're the expert, so you'll know better than me whether this is a good time to dip into access consciousness. But my question was around the idea that are there techniques or tools that we can use that we can be more present? So when we're going through moments, it could be a financial one, it could be a career one, it could be a relationship one, where we actually challenge or are aware to make to follow our energy or go with something that if something's out of sync, I guess we're more in tune with that.
Yeah, I mean, the basic tool that I would talk about, which we talk about in Access Consciousness, is to ask questions. So you know when something's not in sync, right? As you said.
Yeah.
So when something's not in sync, it's like ask, okay, so what is this? What am I aware of? Like instead of going, because so many people will go to a conclusion and they'll go, oh, this is not working. This is not in sync. This is not da-da-da. And you've just killed everything. You've just concluded this is not working. You've killed any future possibilities, rather than if you went, okay, something's not quite in sync here. So what is this? What am I aware of? Can I change this? And if so, how can I change this? And you start asking questions. In business, it's like, if something's not working out, it's like, okay, who can I talk to here? What contribution can I receive? Like we talk about the 4 elements of creation. One is question, asking a question. Okay. So you've got question, choice, possibility, and contribution. As you ask a question, it's like, there's all these possibilities that show up, but you have to choose. Like, I think there's 2 types of people in the world. The ones that wake up in the morning and, and complain that they would like to be a millionaire, but they don't do anything about it. They're never going to have money. They're never going to have a successful business. And then there's the ones who wake up in the morning and take action and go, you know what? Whatever it takes, I'm going to choose this. I'm heading in this direction. Who can I pick up the phone to and actually talk to rather than sending a text? Where can I walk into? What shop can I walk into? What company can I walk into? Etc. And you are taking action. So it's question, choice, possibilities. Like possibilities are galore, And then also the 4th element of creation is contribution. And that contribution, I think, is an interesting one, because a lot of people think that contribution is always about like this one-way street, and it's not. For me, it's so much about receiving. It's like, are you willing to receive from others? Are you willing to ask for help? Are you willing to be, brave enough to ask for help and actually be, I want to say, out of control, because so many of us do this control freak thing of going, no, this has to look this way. Like, I mean, we can talk about any area of life, but if we're talking about business, the business has to look this way, especially if someone created the business. So many times people are like, this is my baby. Yeah, maybe you need to let the baby go and allow other people to contribute to it so that it can grow and expand, So it's like the willingness to be out of control, to instill chaos, to not have structures in your business, but have these systems that are so malleable that you can change them at any moment by the questions you ask, because each and every day is so different. And every person, every project is so different. So if you be in question, then you'll have more information. Your awareness pops and you're like, oh, that.
I love those 4 questions that we can ask. Contribution is very interesting as well, because I lied a lot of these things to me because it's easy to identify. So the idea of asking when we're in a fix, when we're in a difficult moment, when we perhaps feel a little bit stuck, sometimes pride, ego can prevent us from reaching out and asking people that we might, because I guess you can ask people that we know, or sometimes actually you can reach out and ask people that you don't know. You can reach out and say, I know that you've got great expertise in this area. Would you be free? Could I take you for a coffee? Would you be available for a virtual coffee? There might be random things you can do.
Yes. I read this post or something the other day, and it was about, you never see an athlete who is not willing to contribute to somebody who desires to be an athlete. You don't see a millionaire who's not willing to contribute to someone who wants to be a millionaire. It's the people who are not an athlete and the people who don't have any money that tell you that it's not possible.
Yeah.
The athletes and the millionaires will go for it, do it, but you've got to find that courage, that inspiration within you to choose it.
Yeah, so asking questions is important.
And I think that's a great idea. Take someone out for a meal, buy them a drink and go, hey, do you mind if I ask you some questions?
Yeah, totally. And access consciousness, is this something that once you, I guess, I don't know how it works, do you train people the techniques and how this works, and then is it something once you understand what access consciousness is, it becomes something that we do daily? So it's the elements of it that we can bring into our ecosystem and we can do on our daily, as we go about our daily business.
Oh, I love that you said ecosystem, because I'm always referring to that. It's like, we are an ecosystem and we're part of the ecosystem. We're not just, watching it. We are part of it. So how are we going to integrate? I love that. Well, access consciousness is basically like tools and processes to, I'm going to say, change any area of your life that you think is not working for you. Because most people think they have a problem. Like if you said, how's your money situation? You went, oh, it's great. Okay, then what's up? And then you might go, my relationship, or I'm having a problem with my body, or I'm having a problem with this. Like most people think they have a problem with something. Okay. Here's what I'm going to say is, what if you don't have a problem? What if every problem you think you have invented? So if you think you have a money problem, business problem, relationship problem, body problem, what if you looked at it just for a moment, right? And if you're listening and you go, oh, but Simone doesn't know my story. I don't care about your story. It's like, look at that place where you think you have a problem, put your attention on it and go, okay, so if this wasn't a problem, could this be a possibility? What would I have to allow in order to have this be a possibility? And did I invent this? And what did I invent this for? Like, again, as we were referring to, Paul, so many people invent, say, a money problem so they can be the same as everyone else. I know I did. And, I mean, that was the second book I ever wrote, called Getting Out of Debt Joyfully. And I created myself to be $187,000 in debt and not much to show for it. And then one day I just went, you know what, I need to change this. And I did. And I started using the Access Consciousness tools. I guess the philosophy behind Access is, you are an infinite being, right? You're not a finite being. You are friggin' amazing. You are phenomenal. You're an infinite being. And you as an infinite being have the ability to receive anything, like change anything, choose anything. And what tool, what question can you ask? What would you have to choose in order to reach towards that, like lean into the possibilities? I mean, for me, it's like, what if we could have, one of the purposes of life is to have so much fun here on planet Earth instead of the trauma and drama, instead of making so many frigging things relevant. Like if we had joy here, it's like we'd be a really different planet, really different, integration and engagement with each other. So access consciousness is a lot of different classes. We have hands-on classes as well, like body processes. There's one called bars. Bars would be the beginning, which is, it's like you touch 32 different points on the head and just lightly, and it starts to erase a lot of the different points of view, the thoughts, feelings, and emotions you have in certain areas like money, control, aging, sexuality, form and structure, hopes and dreams, like all these different things. And then there's different classes that you can do, but there's also different classes that you can do that we have, we call them specialty classes, like in business or relationships or money, or, even conscious horse, conscious rider is one of our classes. We work with animals as well, or X-Men. We work with a lot of, people who have capacities, ADHD, OCD, all things like that as well. It's like, I don't look at that as something that is incorrect in that being. Every person I've ever met that has ADHD or OCD, or autism, man, are they such aware beings? And it's like, so what if we engaged with them in a different way? And actually acknowledge that I think a lot of us have some little bit of autism or OCD in some way too, and not make it a wrongness. So for me, access consciousness too is that place of, you are not wrong. There is nothing about you that needs to be fixed. But what can you choose different that would allow your life to become greater?
Okay, so it's essentially looking at the choices we make, and something you said earlier as well. It's like from a financial one, you change it from a problem to possibilities, and you think about where the possibilities lay, as opposed to, because I guess if there's a problem, that's what our brain focuses on, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, and it makes it a problem. And then you start talking to someone about it and they go, oh no, I'm so sorry. Now make it a problem. It just takes two people to create this fixed reality of a devastation. Whereas if you went, okay, you know what, I don't know, say you lost all this money and then you went, wow, this is such a problem. Okay, what if it wasn't? Like there was many, 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 many years ago when I had this business, Good Vibes for You, right? I was working at music festivals and I was, that was my main business, right? And I was in Sydney and I wasn't living there at the time, and I was at a friend's house and we had this massive music festival the next day. And I had to get up super early and go set up and do all of that. And I had a van filled with stock, no insurance. And I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning and went outside to jump in my van to go set up this festival. Gone. Everything was gone. Everything was stolen. And so I lost my entire business in this one moment. And I was just stood there and I was like, oh my goodness. I rang the guys at the music festival. I ended up going to the festival for the day because I was like, I really don't know what to do. And I lived 15 hours north of Sydney and I had no money. And so I hitchhiked. I got 3 different rides and I hitchhiked home. And the whole time I was like, what am I going to choose now? What am I going to do now? And I started, and I just met someone from Access Consciousness and he called me and he was like, hey, how you doing? And I spoke to him and I was like, this just happened. And he said to me, well, what's right about it you're not getting? And I was like, what do you mean right? There's nothing right about this. But the way he asked me the question, and it wasn't with a fixed point of view, it was just like, hey, what's like, if you look at this, and if I look at that was one of those moments in my life that changed everything. Because I didn't continue with that business. I sort of changed into something else. I pivoted and changed into something else, but I wasn't doing the music festivals, which in truth, I was done with music festivals. That's a hard gig and I'd done it for quite some time. And so it changed that. And then I started going to access classes and looking at that. And now here I am there. So, these moments in life where you think are just so bad and terrible and awful, it wasn't. It ended up creating my life to be greater, and it's really, if you look at it, I know it's just money. I lost a whole lot of money, whole lot of stock.
Yeah, so I definitely will be looking at access consciousness, and I will definitely get some links. I will definitely get your links, put it in the show notes. I implore everybody to look at this and to research it and understand how it can impact them, because it really feels like it's great. It's lovely to know that there are tools that we all have access to, because I think invariably when difficult things happen in life, we definitely, if we haven't looked at access consciousness, we can view that as pretty final. There's no way out of it. So the fact that we can now, that there are tools that we can actually get access to and to use, and to really think differently when difficult moments happen, because your point earlier about if we want to, if we're an entrepreneur and we want to do something meaningful and impactful, the journey isn't going to be a straight one. There's going to be divots, there's going to be bumps, but I guess we grow from them if we allow ourselves to.
Absolutely. And that, Paul, is a choice.
Yeah.
It really is. Like, I remember talking to a friend of mine once, and she said, I could never do what you're doing. And I said, why not? And she said, I need to work for somebody and I need to know I'm getting X amount of money per week. And I asked her a question. I was like, how come? And she said, it just makes me feel good. And I went, okay. And that neither is right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's just a choice.
Yeah.
But that's not what I choose. I choose to explore a lot more. And I guess it's like, I don't know, be more creative or adventurous, but it's not right. And what somebody else chooses is not wrong. And I think that's really imperative, Paul, is what we get as we make choices. It's not about making the right choice. It's actually about choosing. Like, I've made more bad choices than probably some people have chosen, but I chose, and as I chose, I went, oh, okay, I learned from that. Now what? Now what? Now what? Now what? Like, keep moving forward. For me, life on planet Earth, it should be one of the biggest adventures you have. It is the biggest adventure you have. Live it.
One of my thoughts I often have is that a lot of the people that we invariably admire, these are noted people that just everybody knows just because of social media and stuff. It could be an athlete, an actor, singer, or big entrepreneur. And a lot of people want to be, not, I say, I'm making an assumption here, but definitely there are some people that want to be like these people, but they don't really see the journey, they just see them where they are now. And to your point, these people have made lots of choices along the way. They've had loads of setbacks and difficulties to get to the point where maybe they're seeing some outwardly they're being successful. And some people might say, well, I want that, but I don't want to go through the journey isn't really me. But the opportunity to make choices will put you on that path to get there. So it's I guess what I'm delving into is the access consciousness and some of the tools we have, that if you want to achieve some of these things, then the journey isn't a smooth one. It will be one where you will have referencing it as challenges isn't the best way to do it. Maybe it's changing a terminology, you get a new learning.
Yeah, and don't judge it is what I would say too, because if you go, oh, I don't want to do that because it's going to have too many challenges. What if those challenges could be fun too?
Okay,
like, I told you, I ended up in hospital in the end of October last year, and I was with a friend, and he said to me, God, that was so bad, that was terrible, that was da da da. And I went, hey, I said, it actually wasn't. I was in a lot of pain, yes, and I got a CT scan, and I found out more information about my body, and I was able to choose something different, and I have created greater from that. So you can't look at something as bad and terrible and awful. Like I said before, it's like, it's what if it's just all a gift? But just run, like, like I said before, like a kid, it's like, run wild. It's like, what else? Like, what else can you choose that you're not choosing, that you could be choosing, that if you did choose it, would just show up as this magical life that you could be living?
Yeah, totally. So in line with this episode around awareness for your business and success, I think that your business, Joy of Business, could you maybe speak on that a little bit and what the program is, and just navigate the process, be more resilient?
And I know we've been talking about that, of like how to navigate it, etc. And I just have this on my table. So it's but this is Joy Business. So this is the book I wrote, right? And I wrote this quite a while ago, and I think it's translated into 17 languages now, and it's on Audible as well. I'd highly recommend getting the book because there's so many tools in here, even about, we get stuck on the craziest things like hiring staff, or a point of view, like how many people who have a business think that nobody can do the business as good as them. That's a really common theme. Well,
Yeah.
if you have that point of view, guess what you're going to be hiring? You're going to be hiring people who cannot do the business as well as you, and you're going to end up being like this source point. So the business cannot move unless you are the one that is saying yes to all the different movements and projects. So there's a lot of tools in this book, and I wrote this book based on I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I was saying, I don't get why this person is choosing this. This is business and it's joyful. And he said, Simone, people don't find business joyful. And I was like, what? And he's like, no. And it was one of those moments, those moments in life where you go, what? This is crazy. And I went, but why would people do business if they didn't enjoy it? And he said, Simone, people do business in this reality, to get by, to make money and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but you've got so many choices. And so we had this long conversation, and he said, you need to start doing some classes on this. So I did, using the Access Consciousness tools. And then I noticed that people were so grateful for the simplest of things that I took for granted. I thought everybody knew this or would function like this. And then I put it into a book and I'm actually working on my fourth book now. So that's one of my jobs I'm giving myself this week, is to finish the final read of that book too. And it's another business book too. So, because for me,
Is it titled yet? Have you got a title for it at the moment? Or can
the
you not
working
at this stage?
title, I've got a working title, but I'm not so sure it's going to end up being that.
Okay.
It's just called Business Done Different. So,
Okay.
because it's not differently, because I think so many people look at things and go, oh, I'll do this differently. No, flip it. Flip the whole thing. What if you did business different? Then what would you choose?
Yeah,
but I
absolutely.
highly recommend the book. And there's
Yeah.
there's business facilitators all around the world too. So you can find them. I'm doing a class in Budapest, Hungary, in May.
Travel.
Yes.
You travel.
Yeah, I do. I travel a lot. But I do a lot of classes online as well.
Okay.
Like, I mean, it's brilliant. I love the fact that we have the ability to do that and reach so many different people around the world. We really, in 2020 was great. We opened up to the Middle East big time.
So you're pretty global, and you've got I've been on I've subscribed to it now, your YouTube channel. So you've got loads of amazing content there as well.
I do. And I'm going to say my YouTube channel is really messy at the moment. It's one of the things that we're looking at. We're going to rehaul it and do stuff. So it's going to be great, but it's good. There's a lot of stuff.
Great anyway. The content there, that if people tune into that, subscribe and tune into that, you've got so many different areas.
There's a lot,
but it's rich in content and information that we all can, I guess, glean from and use impactfully. And I'm conscious of your time, so I've got three questions, if I may. One is, this intrigued me, the whispers. I read it in your bio, or in the bio that I read out. The whispers of awareness. Could you maybe expand on what that means?
Yeah, no, well, I think that there's so much going on around you all the time. And if you are functioning from judgment or limitation, or you create these barriers, or there's only like this focused view, like you can only look forward, then you will miss all of those whispers. And I think that the universe is out there to help you. And there's these, that sort of thing where you go, oh, I feel like a coffee. So you walk down to get a coffee, and then you might overhear a conversation and you're like, oh, that. Or you pick up a magazine, you flick through it and you go, oh, that. There is, the universe is giving you these whispers all the time. And if you are not open to receiving them, you'll miss them. So for me, I think a really big aspect of that is, what if you could add relaxation into everything that you do? And I think people misidentify relaxation. They think that it's being lazy or, just having a drink and watching Netflix. It's like, no, it's like if you were relaxed doing this podcast, you're relaxed in a meeting, you're relaxed while you're facilitating, you're relaxed while you're cooking, all of it, then it's sort of like that the silence occurs, and then you start to hear what's going on, and you'll hear something different, and then you have to choose. So then you have to choose and be like, oh, that okay.
I'm often curious about the whispers that I was thinking about people's lives and journeys, about people that have taken advantage or maybe acknowledged is maybe the better word. People have acknowledged and seized upon the whispers that they hear in life. It could be anything. It could be meeting a partner. It could be reading a book. It could be applying for a job. It could be any number of different things. And then I was thinking about, I wonder, am I in tune with my whispers? Am I, or is the lady on the street in the supermarket, the guy on the tube?
Well, you are to the extent you are, and then I think it's a work in progress to always be open to more possibilities. And even if you just wake up and as you're lying in bed in the morning, put your hands on your body and just like be like, hey, body, it's like, how did I get so lucky to have this body? And ask, who am I today and what grand and glorious adventures can I have? What can I receive today that I wasn't willing to receive yesterday? And then get up and start your day. Because it's universe. Show me something beautiful.
A technique we can all use.
Yeah.
Technique we can all use. So where's the best place for people to find you? I'm going to put I'm going to put the book links in the show notes. YouTube links we'll put there. But if people want to find out more about programs, courses, etc., where's the best place?
Go to my website, SimoneMilasas.com. And that's my Instagram, Facebook, everything. It's a good name because I think nobody else has Simone Milasas. And then also on accessconsciousness.com, you can look, I'm on there as well, but you've also you can look up facilitators and classes, etc. Because we're in like 187 countries.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And just a point about you travel a lot. And I guess in the UK, I know that you have historically been to the UK a bit. So do you have any plans to come to the UK, or I guess do you have a calendar of where you're going to be dotted around the world?
I know I don't I do. And I'm at the end of April, I'm heading to Europe for 2 months and then come back home for a bit. And then I go to Americas for 2 months. So South America, etc. So yeah, I'm not actually going to London, which is, I love London. It's one of my favorite places. I always say I do London well. Like, I walked and walked and walked and walked and walked around London because I had no money. So I discovered London just by walking, So I love
it, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a fabulous city to get lost in, to get to know all of it and more. So not this trip, but
future trips.
Yes.
Future trips. Well, do let us know, and let us know about the new book when that comes out. Definitely love to hear about that, and let everybody else know about that. And last question is a recurring question. So if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, alive or past, who might you invite?
So there's a fellow UK citizen who is one of my favorite books. It's called The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And Charlie Mackesy, I think is his name. He's the author of that, and it's such a cool book. It's it's a 30-minute Netflix animated show as well. There's this one line I've got to tell you. It's got so many things in it. I just think he's so intriguing, this guy, and how he wrote this book. The boy says to this horse, the character, he says, "What's the bravest thing you've ever done?" And the horse says, "I asked for help." Help is not a weakness, and it's
that
with things like that. So it's so beautiful and so inspiring. So I'd like to meet him. I'd like to meet him. I'd love to meet Andrea Bocelli. I'm learning Italian. I could practice Italian, and I love that. I mean, his singing is just absolutely phenomenal. And then I'm going to say Bobby Kennedy at the moment. I think he's a phenomenal man. And if that guy gets president, it's going to change the world. So I am so rooting for that. So, yeah. So they're my 3 people for today.
Okay. Simone, amazing meeting you. One thing I haven't mentioned, which I will put in the show notes as well, your podcast. So you've got amazing podcast as well. So we need to put that on the show notes as well. I don't know whether you want to speak on that or whether you just want me to put on.
it's Choice, Change and Action podcast, and it's on Access. Like all those shows are about Access tools, etc. So someone said to me the other day, "Oh, it's like having these little mini classes with you." So if you want to know more about Access, my podcast is about Access, Choice, Change, Action. Yeah.
Okay. Simone, amazing. I was really excited for this, and it really has gone, well, it's lived up to it and gone way beyond, which I thought it might do, in fairness. So thank you so much, and it'd be lovely to stay in touch with you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Have a fabulous day.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you listen to this on or watching even on YouTube, please do subscribe. It really does help the channel, keen to grow. And if you know anybody that is really looking to transform their life and take it to the next level, please do share this episode with Simone. And your feedback is most welcome. We're keen to hear about the things you like and equally the things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.